Hey guys, today we get a really cool video to show you. It's fun and educational. I saw that there's this Wahoo seminar held at Marine Max, and it was done by a friend of mine, Captain Steve Grant. So I called Steve up, actually I texted. I was like, hey, can I film your seminar? And he's like, yeah, sure. So went down there that evening and set up my camera equipment, and we filmed his Wahoo seminar. So you get to see that today. You get to learn a ton of good stuff about catching wahoo, which is one of my favorite fish, hence our shirt design based off a wahoo. Captain Steve Grant is just a great fisherman. He worked at C&H for many, many years. Now he works at Diamond Fishing Company. He just knows a ton about fishing. He's fished these waters and all over for wahoo, for a long time. He just got tons of knowledge up there. So without further ado, I give you Steve Grant and this wahoo seminar.
Thank you guys for coming back, and it's good to see you again. And for those newcomers, maybe I can share a couple things that might help you guys catch a couple wahoo. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Steve Grant. I used to work at C&H Lures for almost half my life. I was there for 18 years, and I spent a lot of time making lures, fishing with lures. I was lucky enough to be able to fish with Captain Don Combs. He showed me a lot. That guy was the man, so God rest his soul. I'm going to share a couple things that he taught me, and we've changed a few things in the past, and we got some new things that I want to show you guys tonight. And first of all, let's start off with talking about what we're here to do, and that's to go look for wahoo, okay? Now I'm going to start this off with the most important thing that you guys are going to learn tonight, okay? Are y'all ready? The key to successful wahoo fishing is information, okay? If you go out there like we used to 20 years ago, and you have no idea what the satellite imagery is, you have no idea where the good bottom spots are, you have to kind of play it by ear every day. With today's technology, it's amazing on what you can actually learn before you even go out. For instance, if everybody hasn't looked at that C-map, that Seymour mapping, you need to take a few minutes and go over there and talk to that. It literally is making it where anybody can go out there and put fish in the boat. So information is key, okay? Now, where do we get our information and what are we looking for? So, wahoo are found all over the world. Now, they prefer temperature north of 68, south of 85, okay? So I know that's a real broad range. And I know, where do we go to find that? That's going to change as the year progresses, okay? So this time of the year when it's really nice and cold, I'll be honest, this is what we want. We want it to be really cold. We want the inshore water to be as cold as possible because what that's going to do, it's going to concentrate the fish in the water that's north of 68 degrees, okay? So how do we find that? Well, I've always been a big fan of Dr. Mitch Roffer's ROFS reports. So what that does, it gives you an analysis. Not only does it give you a satellite picture, but it gives you an analysis on what they've seen and what they expect to happen in the Gulf Stream over the next day. So paying the extra I think it's like $70 for a ROFS report the day before you go fishing, in my opinion, it pays back in dividends. So any little bit of information that's going to help you will help you catch more fish. If your buddy went yesterday, like my buddy Eddie, he caught 5 nice wahoo the other day. Well, hey, Eddie, where'd you go? How deep the water? And, a lot of guys, especially with this tournament coming up, not everybody's going to give up all their information. And if I'm not going to ask you for a GPS number, but I would ask, how deep was he? Most guys are going to tell you within about 5 feet on how deep they were. So, yeah, maybe 10 feet, okay? If the fish are inshore, people don't like to share information. But just think about that information, okay? Networking, having some friends that fish and are constantly going out there. I mean, having a little group that you can talk to when you go offshore. It always cracks me up because you hear this guy, yeah, man, I'm on the 10 line. And it's like, ain't nobody on the 10 line. I'm right here. Everybody's got their little code, I'm starting 5 miles south of what we talked about last night when we had a couple of beers. Well, they done forgot where that was. But having a partner out there to kind of bounce off really will help you, put more fish in the boat. Now, temperature breaks, weed lines, we're not really mahi fishing, okay? If I'm looking for mahi, I want cobalt blue water with some weed line on there, and that's what I'm looking for. Wahoo fishing, I'm only looking for a little bit of a temperature change, okay? A half a degree is enough for me to stop. It doesn't have to be this epic 7-degree temperature change where it goes from kingfish green to blue water blue. So just think about that. Any of these little changes. So the one thing, there's 2 things I will not go fishing without. One's a temperature gauge, the other's a bottom machine. You can have the rest, okay? If everything else failed on the boat, if I have those 2, we'll still go fishing, okay? Because I want to see what's on the bottom. I want to see if we're marking anything. And as long as I know what the temperature is, I really don't need anything else, okay? So just think about that. One nice thing about having a super slow boat like me, okay? There's only a couple of us in here that have a slow boat. I have a 1990 25-foot contender with a single inboard, okay? Wide open with the current and the wind, I can do 32 knots, okay? So typically, we cruise offshore at about 24 to 26 knots. So once I get to wherever my gut tells me to stop, I just stop the boat. We slow down to 16, 18 knots, and we go ahead and at least put a couple rods out. So one thing that a lot of people do is they overrun the fish, okay? And I can say ever since we got our boat, I've been fishing farther and farther inshore because everybody wants to get to the ledge. Those of you that heard me talk about this before, I always joke about it. Here around Northeast Florida, we get ledge fever, okay? Everybody talks about the ledge, all right? It's this epic voyage till you get there, and then when you get to the ledge, it's like the Flemish Capt. The fish are just jumping in the boat, and then you get there, and there's 47 other people that got the same fever, okay? And all y'all going, man, what the heck did we do? What do we do now? Okay? Well, that's where I think it's fun, because when it's hard to catch them is when I personally think that's when I do better, okay? When nobody else is catching them, I might sneak one out of the water, okay? When everybody is catching them, I'm usually not doing as good as everybody else, okay? So what makes us catch them when nobody else is, okay? One of the things, don't be afraid to go deep. I know on one of these Facebook forums, I saw some guys talking that, oh man, the blue water's out in 1,200 feet of water. It's a waste of time. It is not, okay? These fish are pelagic predators. They're going to move with the water. I have had some very good days in 7, 8, 1,100 feet of water. In fact, March of 2010, when I was with Don Combs and we won the Concourse Wahoo shootout, we caught those fish in 675 feet of water. Okay, I'm not going to tell you where we were, but I will tell you that we were in some deep water. And we caught those fish on Ballyhoo too, okay? Because you'll hear me when I talk, I'm a high-speed guy, but when things get tough, we got to switch over to Ballyhoo. All right, so we got our Seymour map on the boat. So all we have to do is we're finding structure, okay? Now what you really want to find is where structure and water come together. And that's where, like I said, we're going back to information. If I can have all this information, if I can get my Roths report and overlay it on the Seymour, now we're really talking, okay? But if you can get a couple of things to work in your favor, those are the spots that you want to target, okay? Because the ocean is huge. There's a gazillion numbers out there, okay? But which ones to go to are going to depend on where the water is telling us to go to. We are looking for a color change, okay? I know I joked about weed lines. The only reason why I joke about weed lines is, yes, you can catch wahoo on the weed lines, but when you're high-speed trolling, everybody on your boat is going to hate you every single time you troll through the weeds, okay? Because high-speed trolling, it's fun to catch them. It's not fun to reel them in. It's not fun to reel the lines in. It's not fun to reel the fish in. It's just fun to eat them, all right? So remember that. A couple times recently, we've had a nice little filtered color change where it's not a hard edge, and that's going to happen when you get a lot of west winds, okay? Wind blows out of the west, that green water kind of spreads on top of the blue water, okay? And you'll notice that it's not a hard change. You'll see your temperature gauge. It's going 67.3, 0.2, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, okay? So it doesn't really know what to do. Next thing you know, you get a mile away and it went up a degree and a half, and you never really saw the change. That's what you want, okay? Right where that transition is, okay? Because the bait fish want to hide in the dirtier water. The fish are in the cleaner water. So that's why when those two waters come together, you have to find that edge, okay? So that's the most important thing I'm going to tell you, is if you can find that color change, you're going to be in good shape. I know I talk a lot about Roths. There's obviously other ones out there. There's Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. There's Terrafin. There's some other stuff that I don't even know about because I've been kind of out of the loop for a couple years. All right, let's talk about trolling east and west versus north and south. And this is something we always joke about, and I'm going back to this is something Don taught me years ago, is he never trolls north and south. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't you troll north and south? Because if I'm in the current, I'm in the Gulf Stream, I'll troll north, I can go like twice as fast, okay? Well, I guess the way the fish feed, okay, you're going to cover more ground by going east and west over a different depth change than you are by going north and south, okay? So anytime I'm trying to make an adjustment, like if I get down on the 3008 line with everybody else from St. Augustine, okay, and I want to go north, I'll go ahead and make diagonals, okay? So instead of going due north, we'll go at like 330, then I'll go at like 50, and I'm just trying to cover as much ground as possible, okay? Yes, we've all caught fish going due north and due south, but you'll double it if you troll east and west. If you get bored out there, one thing you can do is make sure you got your chart plotter on track, and you can just kind of draw a picture with the boat, okay? It's actually kind of fun, okay? I have not perfected the smiley face, although I'm really good at the Twin Peaks, just saying, okay? All right, well, I'm dying to talk about the high speeding, so let's start talking about tackle and gear and techniques and stuff like that. So as you can see on here, I tried to, and yes, my wife already made the observation that I tried to make it look like I'm fishing, but there is not nearly enough crap on this boat. If anybody's fished with me, you know I got it. Okay, man, I got this and that, damn Ballyhoo rods, blah, 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 blah. So I brought probably a sixth of what I usually bring on the boat, which is another reason why my boat only does 24 knots on the way offshore, okay? But talking about the different rods, different reels, I don't care what you have. I'm not going to sit there and tell you what to go buy, okay? I've tried it all. I've had the TLDs, I've had internationals, I've had the Tiagras. I've kind of gotten to where I'm a big fan of the Tiagras, number one, because they last longer on the drags as far as maintenance goes, and number two, I can actually hear it because I'm not getting any younger, okay? So when a fish hits a Tiagra, you can hear him. The pen, it's kind of quiet, and if I had somebody running on the back there, you can definitely tell the difference. So, not here to sell you rods and reels. I'm just trying to tell you that everything works, and use what you can or use what you have. Okay. I'm going to recommend if you're getting new Wahoo reels, I'm going to tell you to get at least 50 wides. Okay. Why? Because they're universal. Yes, the biggest Wahoo I ever caught was on a stupid Shimano Speedmaster with 16-pound test, and I still have not beat that stupid fish, okay? Caught hundreds since then, so yes, you can catch big fish on light tackle, but I'm not fishing for a $75,000 boat with 16-pound test, okay? I mean, let's face it, a lot of us here are wanting to go catch a big Wahoo, and we don't want to lose them. So the smallest I'm going to recommend is a 50 wide. Doesn't matter which 50 it is, but you want at least 600 yards of line, okay? If you can get 600 yards of line and get 15 pounds of drag on that 600 yards, you got a pretty good chance. Ain't no guarantee when you go out there, okay? But you got a pretty good chance. Something that I've kind of got away from is fishing with all monofilaments, okay? Multiple reasons, as most of you guys just know. I just said 600 yards, so we got to where we fish with braid, okay? For not only can I get twice the line capacity, I can also get twice the breaking strength and twice the line capacity. So why not? Now, some people in here wonder why I use hollow core braid. There's a couple of reasons why. Number one, hollow core braid is made from 16 different carriers of braid, okay? You ought to see this stuff getting made. There's 16 little bobbins that work around to make this tiny little super thin braid. So with the hollow braid being 16 carrier and solid being 8 carrier, you get twice as much abrasion resistance, okay? So that's big reason number one. Yes, it is a little bit more expensive, but that's big reason number one. Number two, there's a phrase that, you know, Forrest Gump said, happens, trying to keep it G-rated. So when crap happens on the boat and you have hollow core braid, you don't have to buy a whole new spool of line. You can actually splice the braid back into itself with only a foot splice and a foot splice, and it settles right back down, and it's 100% connection, okay? So if you lose 150 yards of hollow core when you went fishing, well, guess what? It's not going to cost you $100 to go spool it up. It's going to cost you $20 to go fix it, okay? I didn't bring my needles with me, but if you look up splicing hollow to hollow braid, it literally takes 5 minutes on the boat, and you can re-splice it in, okay? So what that does is it saves you money. You're going to spend more money off the bat, but I'll be honest, it's going to save you some money. Another reason why I use hollow core is on my long lines, I actually splice in about a 50 or 60 foot piece of fluorocarbon, okay? A couple reasons why I like to do that. Number one, if I have to switch over to ballyhoo fishing, I don't like doing straight braid to the lure, okay? I like having, these rods, if I was ballyhoo fishing, would end up being where the teasers are, but I'm just, things aren't exactly like I'm fishing. But my straight braid rods, when we switch to ballyhoo fishing, I'll move them up here, and those become my teaser rods, okay? All my rods that I ballyhoo fish have a top shot. You can use mono. I prefer to use fluorocarbon. Why not, okay? And I'm just getting a little bit of stretch, and the main reason is ballyhoo fishing, you get a lot more head shakes, okay? And if I got fluorocarbon straight to the leader, all my leaders are made from fluorocarbon too. And there's a couple reasons why. Fluorocarbon is not made like mono. It does not cut like mono, okay? And I have a couple of lures that you guys are more than welcome to come check out later that I've caught nice wahoo on, and I haven't re-rigged it yet, just so you can see what happens after they do bite the fluorocarbon, okay? So all my stuff has become fluorocarbon. Also on my long lines, when I get to that, all my long lines are fluorocarbon even when I'm high speeding, okay? So just something to think about. So 50 wide's the smallest thing I'm going to recommend. If I had the money to buy 5 130s, I'm not getting them, honey, don't worry. If I had the money to buy 5 130s, I would probably go buy them, okay? Now that's strictly for fishing the wahoo tournament. Any advantage that you can give yourself, okay, is one less advantage for the fish, okay? These 80 wides, they seem big, they get really small when you hook a nice fish, okay? I've even had a couple 80-pounders take over 600 yards off of these, and I fish with 25 to 28 pounds of drag, okay? So I fish with a substantial amount of drag, which is also why I use a 130-pound test. So all the stuff I use, everything you see up here is a 130-pound braid, okay? One thing to keep in mind about braid, okay, and if you're new to this, mono works, it still works, okay? Braid is dangerous, all right? You're only as good as your crew. So just keep this in mind. When you got a wahoo on a rod with braid, it's running 50 miles an hour the opposite way, that braid will cut anything it touches. It'll also cut off another one of those $89 lures, okay? So you just got to be careful when you're fishing with braid and just know what you're doing. So that's where it comes into one thing that we started doing years ago is marking our rods. The last thing you want is to lose tackle. When we're trolling 5 rods behind the boat at high speed, we got about $600 worth of tackle behind the boat at one time, okay? And then nobody wants to lose that. Between trolling weights and rigs and lures and everything, there's a lot of terminal tackle back there. So we mark everything so it takes all the guesswork out. Now, the only rods on my boat that I don't mark are my 2 flat lines right here because I adjust them a little bit. Sometimes I got them right there. Sometimes I got them a little farther. But I like to fish what's called tagline returns. And I tried to get here early enough to rig up this outrigger But Larry didn't even have the release clip on the outrigger. I just want to say, thanks, Larry. But see, I fish tagline returns, and I can't seem to get away from it because I absolutely love fishing with them, okay? Now, I had to learn how to keep some of these outriggers from breaking every time I use tagline returns, okay? Now, anybody here that wants to know more about tagline fishing, I'll try to draw like a little chart out or something after the seminar. I'll show you because it's like Chinese arithmetic trying to explain to you exactly how a tagline return rigs up on a boat, even though it's a very, very simple process. But what ends up happening is a rubber band becomes my release clip, okay? Because you can't troll a 3-pound trolling weight and a 1-pound lure at 14 miles an hour on a release clip. There's a few that say that they hold up to 40 pounds. I would never, ever trust it. So a rubber band, and the ones that we use for high speeding, of course, are the ones I think I left right down there. Yeah. But they make them, the two sizes I use is a number 32 and a number 64. So the 64, can you grab this for me, babe? Come on. The number 64 rubber band breaks at about 11, 12 pounds of pressure. Now keep this in mind if you're going to get some rubber bands. Go buy the regular rubber band, colored rubber band. I know that sounds stupid, but if you go to Office Max and get their orange rubber bands, you're going to find that you're going to break some line. I don't know what they made those things out of, but they don't break, okay? So the regular manila, whatever you call this, rubber band, and a number 64, and this becomes my release clip, okay? Now one thing I'm going to do here in a few minutes is I'm going to show you how I mark the line, and I'm going to put a loop on this rod real quick to show you what we do with the tagline return, okay? But this right here, like I said, it breaks at about 8 to 12 pounds, and that does vary. And if we need to add a little bit, I'll add a small rubber band to it. So I may have 2 rubber bands on my tagline return, okay? Now, how we keep the outriggers from breaking, because I've broken, if you buy a boat and you have taco outriggers, don't tell them I was with you because they ain't going to warranty it. So, but when your outrigger's out, we'll take a piece of like 1/8-inch nylon cord, okay? And we'll loop it around towards the end of the outrigger, and we'll tie it up to the bow so it acts like a little bungee line, okay? So when you guys get home, look up tagline return. You're going to go, oh, that's what that crazy guy was talking about, all right? But what I like about them is it puts my 2 long lines in clean, untrolled water, okay? Now, one benefit about having a single inboard boat is literally my wave splits right here where these guys are, and I can put a lure right there because I have 0 white water because I don't have any underwater thrust. It's actually amazing, okay? At 9 knots, my boat's a big frothy mess. At about 14.5 knots, the wave comes together, and it is literally crystal blue from one side of the wave to the other. It's nothing like it. It's the only boat I've ever seen like it. That's why I bought it. To be honest with you, that's why I bought the stupid thing. So, as far as distance from the boat on how far to put your lures, like I said, I don't mark my two flat lines, okay? But roughly it's about 100 foot and 150 foot. My middle line's about 200, and then my long left's 250, my long right's 350, okay? Now, as you can kind of see, my little tagline returns I have rigged up here on my Mickey Mouse drawing. I should pass first grade for that one there. It also lets my line go behind the boat, okay? I really wish I rigged these up so I could explain this a little better. So, but anyways, the other nice thing about having tagline returns is if I catch a fish on one of my 3 flat lines, which we catch most of the fish on my boat, I'd say on these 3 rods, we leave those out. Don't bring them in, okay? A couple things. The more rods and crap that you have to deal with in the boat, the more you're going to break stuff, people are going to get hurt, and you're going to end up losing fish. Not only that, I can't tell you how many double and even triple hookups we've had because Wahoo, I'm not going to say they're easy to catch, okay, but they're easy to predict. When you have them hooked up and you're fighting them, okay, you can pretty much bring them right down the pipe. They're going to go a little bit starboard or a little bit port, but you can pretty much bring them right down the pipe, okay? Now let's talk about a couple things now. What do we do after we actually hook one of these things, okay? First thing I'm going to tell you to do is don't change a thing for as long as you can stand it. Another reason why we like braid, okay? So you can keep going for a little bit longer because 1 can turn into 2, 3, 4. I've actually had 6 Wahoo on at one time before. Holy guacamole, okay? Now that was years ago. That was actually back in 2003. I'll never forget. It's the only time I ever had 6 on, okay? I mean, we've caught quadruples in 3, but 6 on at one time. We were ballyhoo fishing. Had 1 on, kept the boat going. Had number 2. Okay, I was good after 2. Okay, I'm like, all right. Then 3, 4, 5, 6. Holy crap. 2 lines crossed, cut those 2 off. This one, blah. We went 2 for 6, like that. Okay, so keep the boat going for as long as you can stand it. Okay, and I usually say, probably 30 seconds. It's really not that long. I can't stand it. Okay, because everything that fish has taken, you're gonna have to get it back. Okay. So the longer you keep the boat going 15 miles an hour, that's an extra, 150, 200 yards, which I don't reel them in anymore anyway, so that's fine. So, but keep the boat going for about 30 seconds, I'd say, all right? Now, if you read high-speed fishing, the way I define high-speed fishing is faster than 10 knots, slower than 20. Yes, you can catch fish faster than 20 knots. Fastest I've personally ever caught a wahoo is 21.7 knots, okay? It was on my buddy's old ocean, and I was as fast as this boat went, so we stuck 280s and had at it. Next thing you know, everybody's yelling at us, we can't even hear him. We had a fish on. It was like a half a mile behind the boat. So, but we did catch a fish at 21.7 knots. So every boat has a different, what I call a happy speed, okay, where it lays out. Not necessarily on plane, okay? The boat I'm standing on planes at 16 to 17 miles an hour. That's what I'm talking about, okay? 14.5 knots. So every boat has a different speed. My boat is 16 to 17 miles an hour. It's 14.5 knots. And what's funny, my boat, I can kind of hit the throttle and just walk around for a second. And the next thing you know, the boat does 14.5 knots all on its own, okay? So after you hook the fish, keep it going for a little bit, then slowly come down, okay? If you make a drastic change, fish is gone, bye. Okay, you're trolling a trolling lead and a lure, and as soon as this weight gets slack, it rolls the hook out of the fish's mouth. Okay, and if you can kind of imagine how you would dehook a fish, just drop the weight. It literally dehooks the fish. Okay, so after you got the fish hooked up, keep the boat going for 30 seconds. Then we're going to come from 14 knots to like 10 knots. Okay. And what's funny too, everybody is so worried about, oh God, we got a fish on. They start cranking the lines in. Man, you're going to be cranking that fish in for like 10, 12 minutes, okay? You got all the time in the world to get the lines in. Pay attention to the fish. Make sure that the guy knows what he's doing, okay? And by the way, Larry, this boat's missing like 4 rod holders, okay? I need 2 up front for my teasers, okay? And I need 2 0-degree rod holders right here. So one thing that we started doing, because the tournaments I used to fish back when I didn't have any gray hair, we used to have to do everything by IGFA rules, okay? Meaning as soon as this rod had a bite and I grabbed it, okay, it's mine. Do not touch, do not pass go, do not collect $200, okay? So with the IGFA rules, nobody can really help you, and you got to get into a harness. You can't use the boat or you can't use anything. So I'm still great with all that, but if everybody else is cheating, I'm going to cheat too. Okay? So what we do now is we use a 0-degree rod holder, preferably a swivel base. Okay? So I got a fish on here. Notice rod leash. I've lost a couple. Okay? It's a very small investment. So while the fish is running, okay, because we know as long as the drag is, as long as line's coming off of here, the fish is tight. So while the fish is still running, we'll come to one of our 0-degree rod holders. Okay, now one thing everybody's looking at me going, wow, this guy has all bent butts. Exactly, okay? Because my bent butt in a 0-degree rod holder has this angle on it. Everybody can see that, okay? That's the perfect fighting angle for a fish. Okay, I've got tension on it, and obviously with a little bit of fish pressure on there, it's going to have a perfect bend. Now with a 0-degree, I can kind of wiggle a little this way and crank on it. And we can wiggle this way if we need to and crank on it. So instead of using harnesses and stuff, I'm going to tell you guys while the fish is still running, try to put them in a 0-degree rod holder in the back of the boat. And it's always a lot easier to put it back here where you can kind of get your knees up against it, okay? Now the boat's still going fast, by the way. Now we're coming down a little bit slower. I got the rod in this rod holder. Now I'm coming down to about 8 knots. Now I'm telling my guy to start cranking, okay? He may not be able to get line, but I want to see what the fish is doing at this time, okay? I'll typically already have this in low gear. We fight, I'd say 90% of our fish in low gear. We keep the boat going fast enough to where you don't get caught up with low gear, and you'll know what I'm talking about. So all of a sudden, we'll slow down to about 6 knots. That's it, okay? I don't want to go much slower than that, okay? So now we're cranking on this fish in low gear. As long as whoever's fighting this fish is getting positive ground, I don't want to change anything on the boat, okay? Those of you that are lucky enough to have autopilot on your boat, best thing you could do when the rod goes off, beep, if you're not already on auto, just hit auto, okay? So that way the boat's going to stay straight and you can do something else, okay? So just keep that in mind. Now, if you're having a hard time gaining line on the fish, there's a couple of tricks that you can do, and we've been doing these for years. By making little angle adjustments with the, if you have autopilot, hit +10, +10. So you go 20 degrees. So the boat's going to turn 20 degrees. Now all of a sudden, I can gain a little bit of line on this fish because I got an angle to him, okay? Now if I notice my angler's starting to crank a little too fast, I go the other way, tighten it back up. Well, guess what? You just tighten it right back up. And these little things are what the difference are, people catching 7, 8 fish and the guys catching 1 and 2, okay? So is once you got one hooked up, getting him to the boat. That's the hardest part, okay? If you can get through the first run, you usually can catch that fish. Just saying, okay? That fish can be caught. So, all right. As far as drags go, I know I kind of briefly hit it. I set mine between about 25 to 28 pounds. Okay, you can come up here and grab either one of these 80s, and they're hard to pull. You will lose a couple fish with that heavy of a drag, but my theory with it is he's either on or he's off. Okay, I don't want to fight this fish for 25 minutes and him shake the hook. I'll know in the first 10 seconds whether we're going to catch this fish or not. Now, if you're using 60-pound monofilament, which is the smallest thing I'm going to recommend for high speeding, you're going to use about 16 to 18 pounds of drag, okay? Now, that's at strike. So sometimes with a big weight and with the boat going in and out of the waves, you'll have to kind of go a little bit above strike, okay? Just remember that when the fish hits and starts running, bring it back to where it's supposed to be, okay? Another thing I just want to key on real quick, as spool diameter decreases, drag increases on its own, all right? Now, with braid, it doesn't make that big of an adjustment because it takes a long ways for the braid to get down. But especially with monofilament, you get 300 yards of mono off your reel. When you started at 25 pounds, you're going to be over 30-something. So something else to think about. So everybody wants you to go up while the fish is getting way out. The hardest thing to do is to come down. But you got to sometimes, okay? So think about that. I got a big star on this note, and I got to share it because it cracks me up. Over the last probably 7 or 8 years, I almost feel like I'm not wahoo fishing unless I'm high speeding, okay? I know they still get caught on Ballyhoo, and I still catch them all the time on Ballyhoo, but I honestly feel the best chance to catch the biggest fish is when I can use the biggest lures with the most drag and try to take advantage of everything that I can. So high-speed fishing, I've always been a fan of mustad hooks, okay? I use a 7732 10-aught hook. The reason why I use the 7732 style instead of the 7691 is because of the hook gap. I know a lot of the guys out there that do the little hook sets and stuff, they use the 91 hook. My only problem with the 91 hook is you need to use an 11-aught to get the same hook gap that I have here with a 10-aught. And these hooks are $3 less. So just something to think about, okay? I've always used these. Now, who wants to be my guinea pig for a second? Anybody? Sir? Yeah, just grab this and just walk down. I just want to show people how long this whole little setup is. There is hooks in that one, so do be careful, please. One of the other most important things for the mate is a pair of gloves, okay? I have forgotten these. I cannot tell you how many times. It is so annoying because I literally bring everything but the kitchen sink, and I get all the way out there, and we're about to wire the... You can just let it down, sir. Just leave it right there. So it drives me nuts. Y'all have got to be careful when you get to this point, okay? And the few of you that know the story on how old Scuba Steve here almost got killed from a 48-ounce trolling lead, it was one of our epic fishing days years ago. We had 10 Wahoo this day, okay? We were hooked up to Wahoo number 9, and while we were cranking in, Wahoo number 10 ate, okay? Was not ready for that. So all of a sudden, we hook a fish literally 10 feet behind the boat with a full drag reel, okay? And, I mean, he's here. So I didn't have my gloves on. I go to wrap this leader. I get two or three cranks on it, and I have to let him go. And the guy with the rod wasn't paying attention, okay? And he was standing behind me. You know, I actually have a picture of him doing like this, okay? When that fish when I had to let go of that fish, that lead came over and literally hit me in the side of the temple. I ain't never been knocked out in my life, okay? And that was the first time I've ever been knocked out. I laid out on the floor. I woke up to about a 45-pound Wahoo flopping my way, okay? They got the fish, but the fish also got my $249 Maui Jims, okay? Just saying, all right? So y'all just be careful, okay? When it comes to this point, make sure you got a good, I always joke about it takes four guys to catch a big fish. You got a boat driver, you got a rod man, you got a leader man, and then you got a gaff man, okay? So perfect case scenario, the rod guy is going to move up the side here, holding the lead off the side of the boat. I'll go ahead and get it out of your way. Wire man wires this in, okay? Now this is where, believe it or not, this makes a big difference. By this point, you should know where the fish is hooked, whether he's on the right side of the mouth or the left side of the mouth, okay? If the fish wants to go that way, don't pull him this way because he's going to go into the motors, okay? When the guy that's fighting the fish hands it to the wire guy, that guy needs to make the decision on where the fish needs to go. And that makes a big difference, okay? And if you can try to see it, the fish is going to this side, okay. We'll pull him to this side of the boat. On my boat, we don't have that problem because these aren't there, okay? I got a flat transom. We bring every fish straight down the pipe right in the center, okay? But when you're fishing around motors like that, something to keep in mind is try to figure out if that fish is hooked port or starboard, okay? And go the way he's going. Something else you could do too, this is when the captain takes it off of auto, sticks it on manual, okay? And the fish is coming this side, turn a little bit into him. Just a little bit, okay? Also, the captain needs to have his hands on the throttle. If that fish does something stupid, hit the gas. Get away from him, okay? Get away from him, that's fine. I don't care if he takes another 100 yards of line. Get away from him, then slow back down and try again, okay? A lot of people lose them. You're either going to lose them in the first 10 seconds or the last 10 seconds, okay? And that's where most of the Wahoo are lost, all right? And we don't want that. When I lose them in the last 10 seconds, Captain Scuba's mad. I'm just saying, Captain Scuba's really mad. And I know I'm bouncing around a little bit because I'm a little bit excited, okay? Because I'm not going to lie, I really wish I was fishing tomorrow, but I got to go to work. So, as far as lures go, there's a lot of lures out there. A lot of lures work, okay? Mr. Big works. Sold that one for years. I do have my own lures that I did make. I've got a purpose for each one, okay? Now, one thing Don taught me years ago, and I still do the same thing, is he's always done dark lures on one side, light lures on the other, okay? And I remember when I tried to change it, I'm like, I'm smarter than you, Don. I'm going to do dark lures close and light lures far. Yeah. Started catching more fish when I went back to what Don told me to do, okay? So for some reason, I don't know if it's juju, I don't know whatever it is, but the left side of my boat is always dark, okay? I like black and green, black and purple, anything that's dark. Right side's always light. The only thing I change is either my middle rod, that sometimes on my boat I actually have a rod holder right here and I'll fish a middle rod, or the shotgun. Everything else, leave it out, okay? It's easier for a fish to see a dark colored lure than it is a light colored lure, no matter what the situation, okay? Who here inshore fishes? Okay, what's the best color inshore here in Jacksonville in the brown water? Brown, dark color. It doesn't make any sense, right? The shadow created by the darker lure is easier for the fish to see. And something I tell people too, because it cracks me up. Everybody's got a theory. I have my own theories too. People make fun of me too. I don't care. It's fine. So the clouds are out. They're hitting light lures today. Yeah. Okay? Or if it's bright out, they're hitting dark lures. Now, put yourself through a situation. You're a wahoo, okay? Wahoo feed looking up or looking straight, okay? So if you're looking up and it's noon on a sunny day, are you going to see a yellow and green lure or a black and purple? You're going to see a black and purple, okay? Because the lighter lures get blended in with the silhouette of the sun. So just something to think about, okay? So sometimes we catch all of our fish on the blue lures or the blue and whites or whatever, but maybe the fish saw the black lure and then he came to the boat. I don't know why. It's just what we do, okay? And like I said, I got away from that years ago, and then all of a sudden I'm going back to my roots, what I call them. So as far as colors go, honestly, it's something I tell everybody to have fun with. They all do work. Yes, some do work better than others, okay? I could pick 3 or 4 off of there that I always use. You can see, obviously, those are my lures in front of me. And that one that's orange-pink with the yellow stripes is called the beeliner color. I don't know what it is. I made that color about 8-9 years ago, and that thing has killed it. I believe it's won a couple of the Wahoo tournaments, too, the last couple years in a row. So when you're playing with colors, have fun with it. And when you find something that works for you and your boat, stick with it, okay? I catch a ton of fish on black and green. I know guys that have trolled black and green all over this ocean and haven't got a bite. I can't catch a fish on black and red. I mean, it's one of those funny things. So when you find something that works for you, stick with that, okay? And then you'll start playing with your own different little combinations and stuff like that. Another funny thing real quick, if you read about high-speed fishing online, there's a guy that says, Wahoo don't eat jet heads. Because they don't like bubble trails or some funny thing like that. I mean, I love reading that every time I do, I smile. Any jet head, I don't care if it's mine, yours, Tom, Dick, and Henry's, okay? Behind a trolling weight, no jet head is going to make a bubble, okay? A lure has to come to the surface to breathe the air to make any type of bubble trail. So just keep that in mind, all right? No jet head is going to make a bubble trail unless it's trolled without trolling weight or unless it has a chance to breathe on the surface, okay? Okay, now a couple little tips on how not to get tangled, okay? Most of the lures that have been lost in the last couple weeks are because of a tangle. I am going to show you how I mark my rods, but not only marking your rod, even if you have all your rods marked, if you put the wrong one out first, you're done, okay? Longest line goes out first. Long line, long rigger, long flat, short flat. Okay? The short flat comes in first when you have to bring him in. And think about that, okay? If I'm trying to let my line that's 400 feet out and I already got my 150 and my 250 out and I let it out there, I'm just praying that it doesn't get tangled in another one, okay? And it just takes, and it cracks me up because every time I go fishing, especially when I go with somebody else or somebody new, everybody wants to help, and that's great. I love helpers, okay? But usually what I tell them to do is just get the lure in the water and leave it right there, and I'll be there in just a minute, okay? So that's one nice thing about marking your rods is you can take a lot of the guesswork out, and you can have people actually help you on the boat, because you're only as good as the worst person on your crew, okay? Think about that. Love some of our buddies, but, we all have that one guy that we bring him because he makes a hell of a sandwich. Just saying. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I know, okay? So we all have that guy that makes a sandwich, and he's always good for gas money. But, you know, it's like, God, man, y'all let him catch that fish again? Oh, God, we're not going to get this one. So, so keep that in mind, all right? All right, so we let the longest line out first, the shortest line out last. Same thing goes for ballyhoo fishing, okay? Now, the nice thing about ballyhoo fishing, since we're going a lot slower, and my ballyhoo speed, I'm going to tell you, is 4.5 to 9.5 knots, okay? Probably 8 knots being where I'm going to be 99% of the time, okay? Now, when I'm ballyhoo fishing, you can see these teasers and stuff behind me. I try to make the wahoo think that I'm sail fishing, okay? Some of the biggest daggone wahoo I've caught on ballyhoo has been while we're sail fishing. We'll stick a couple of wahoo rods out there, and we've had some monster wahoo. I've had some wahoo while we're sail fishing so big, we didn't catch some of them. Skyrocketed, okay, splashed right there by the boat and got me wet. I mean, this thing was a tank, okay? So I like making a commotion. If I'm going to ballyhoo fish, I'm going to go all out. So I'll have my teasers. I'm fishing planers. I'm fishing this. I'm fishing everything, okay? Now, I just said the planer word. I'm stuck between the cleated off planer and the inline planer, okay? Personally, I like to use the inline planer because it's one less piece of hardware in the water, okay? The cleated off planer really is kind of 2 lines, okay? And most people, when you use a cleated off planer, you're going to use a larger size one, either a 16, I think I may be either a 16 or a 24 down there, okay? Have you ever tried to pull that thing in while you're still going forward? Dude, that sucks. I'd rather catch the fish, okay? So, cleated off planer, yeah, I do like them. They are effective, okay? Now, the reason why I got this one set up here tonight is if you have 30s, I'm not going to sit here and tell you can't go wahoo fishing. I'm just going to tell you save your money and don't try to go high-speed fishing, okay? Because you'll end up just throwing away some tackle. Last thing I want somebody doing is going out there and throwing money away, okay? I mean, I work hard for everything I have up here. I don't like throwing anything away. So if you have 30s, make the best of it. Fish with ballyhoo. You'll catch fish, okay? A couple reasons why we don't like using ballyhoo. It's not because they don't catch fish. It's because they catch every daggone thing. Okay? I don't want to catch kingfish. I don't want to catch barracuda. I don't want to catch tuna. I want to catch daggone wahoo. Okay? So the faster you go, the less trash fish you're going to catch. Okay? So that's why I say you control as fast as your lures look good. I ain't going to tell you speed. We talked about high-speed fishing a little while ago. Faster than 10, slower than 20. As fast as your lures look good. Okay? If your lures look good, everything stays in the water at 25 miles an hour, then have at it, man. Wahoo are one of the fastest fish in the ocean. They will hit. If they can see it, they will hit it. Okay? So, let's talk about planer fishing for a second here. Now, the one nice thing about the cleated off planer is you can use a lighter rod. And what we'll do, this one doesn't have a hook in it, so I'm just going to throw that one out there. Okay? So, when I'm doing this, I don't like to let the lure out or the bait out real too far. I'd probably let it out about probably a little bit past Jeremy, okay? So like 30, maybe 40 feet. Hey, you don't have to. I'm not going to say that's fine. So let it out like 30 or 40 feet, and then I'll grab the number 32 rubber band. Remember, I'm real specific on my size rubber band. 64 for high speeding in the tagline, 32 for my planer. This breaks at about 3 or 4 pounds, okay? Because one thing that you can still do high speeding, but you definitely need to be able to do ballyhoo fishing is drop back, okay? So what you do, you take this and you wrap it around the line. We're going to wrap it around about 6 times. 3, 4, 5, 6. Then take one side, pull it through the other. So I got that rubber band's not going anywhere, okay? Now, as far as attaching it to the planer, you can use a double swivel. You can steal your wife's shower curtain rings. It's cool, whatever. I've had to do that before. But what I like to do is I rig 2 swivels about 1.5 feet apart from each other, okay? What this does is when this actually deploys, So we'll snap this to my rubber band. So a rubber band becomes my release clip again, okay? And we'll put it on our planer. And we'll let it go on down. So the nice thing about having that little bit of a leash, I actually kind of call it, is it keeps the bait above where the planer is, okay? I've had fish hit and they go right in front of the boat, okay? If they're doing that and the clip is stuck down there on the planer can actually cut you off, okay? Is that right? Yeah. But old Scuba is going to spend most of his planer time fishing with something like this, okay? Now, there's all different types of planers out there. I will say it makes a huge difference which one you get. Old Salty. The old Salty planers are what you want. They got a different size blade, and one thing you want to make, I know everybody that has a tackle shop is going to kill me right now. One thing you want to make sure of when you're looking at your planer is that the bar is perpendicular to the blade, okay? A lot of the larger, once you get into the bigger planers, a lot of them when they get shipped, I used to have a tackle shop, I understand. When they get shipped, the bar gets bent over to the side, okay? You stick a planer in the water with a bent bar, next thing you know, it'll literally do a loop, and it'll gather all your lines and tangle you up and cost you $300, okay? And the other planer that I want you guys to look at, it's called a number 4-6. It actually has a 6-ounce weight on a number 4 planer, okay? That's my favorite one. So now these planers, they almost take, that planer at 8 knots is going to take almost 25 to 28 pounds of drag just to keep line from rolling off the reel, okay? So what I do when we planer fish is I'll actually put a mark on here with like with electrical tape or something on where the drag needs to be after the bite, okay? Because yeah, if you're fishing with those little hooks and 28 pounds of drag, while that fish is running away from the boat, he's going to pull the hook, I'd say at least half the time, okay? So when planer fishing and inline planer, your crew has to be back here, not drinking beer, all right? So another little tip, just saying. Hey, I like drinking beer too, okay? But we're out here to catch fish, right? All right, well, I'm going to go through. Let me show you guys a couple little ballyhoos that I got rigged up here. And I'll have these out so y'all can look at them later, okay? This is my new and improved way of double hook rigging. I actually do the interlocking hook inside the fish. I absolutely love this rig, okay? A lot of you guys that have seen me do this before, and I have everything laid out, and I'll show you the hooks and everything afterwards. Something else too, you'll see I leave all my stuff without a lure on it. I like using wire. I also use fluorocarbon, okay? On all my wire rigs, I'll tie 2 dozen ballyhoo and leave the lure off. I don't know what I want to put on here yet, okay? And something that we always like to do, if you catch a fish on the daggone black and purple Islander, don't grab the black and green one and put it out because it was already rigged. I can't stand that, okay? So put another black and purple out, all right? So something else you'll see on my Islanders. Now we're getting to the little tricks that actually make a big difference in my opinion, okay? I give all my Islanders a haircut, okay? I shorten the hair. I also cut the back for a couple reasons. If you notice these lures, when you fish them, they spend a lot of time on the surface. They kind of slip a lot, okay? I cut a lot of this hair off to reduce the amount of drag so they actually get underwater a little bit. So this is something I like to do. I'm not telling you to go over there and give all your Islanders a haircut, okay? Because I think everybody here has a couple of these on the boat, but something to think about maybe trying, okay? If you're not catching fish on that lure or something like that, trim it off, see what happens, okay? Every single one that I got is all trimmed. And here's, you guys can come look at this later. Here's an example of about a 40 or 45 pound wahoo that we caught on fluorocarbon, and he chewed the fluoro, but he didn't cut it through, okay? No, I would not put this back out, but I saved it for you guys to take a peek at, all right? So, double hook rig. Little single hook fluorocarbon rig. I like to keep the beaks of my ballyhoo long, and on these smaller, on my long lines, I like fishing a smaller bait. I like using the Islander Juniors, okay? And the reason why I cut the ballyhoo's long nose is these heads actually, I don't know if you can see that, okay? They cinch down on top of the head. I can actually pull that right there, and now the lure will swim like I want it to. Because Islanders actually do have a top and a bottom, all right? I know some people just throw it on there, throw it out, okay? Drives me nuts. We're running 62 miles offshore to try to go wahoo fishing, and then as soon as we get there, everybody wants to just throw everything in the water as quick as they can. Man, take a couple minutes and put it out correctly, okay? So get everything lined up, then lay it in the water, okay? And before I put out my ballyhoo, I like to break them up a little bit. I'll break the tail. Ooh, nice, nice. Okay, go on this side, and then, ooh, see that? You just push it just hard enough to bust the tail. Gets nice and flimsy. You're going to get a bite on that, okay? Some of this is just same old, same old. Now, here's the old way. Some of you guys that have known me for a while. This is how we used to rig our double hook ballyhoo rig. Now, I still have some rig like this, okay? We actually put a little swivel in the bottom part of the crimp, rig the first hook, and then just kind of slide the second hook into the fish, okay? Now, there's a lot of other different ways to double hook rig a ballyhoo, but everything that I've actually showed you up here is an IGFA legal rig, okay? The second hook is supposed to be connected to the fish while it's deployed from the boat. One of those rules. In case you go out there and catch a 187-pound wahoo, all right? I want to make sure it counts, okay? So there's a couple of my little ballyhoo, and like I said, after we're done, if anybody wants to come over and take a peek at those, that'd be great. And if Larry, if you have a paper towel or something I could borrow, that would be awesome, okay? Before I do my couple little technical things, do I have any questions at this point that I can answer? No way I did that good of a job. Hang on. Yeah. My favorite size is a 4-6. The Old Salty. Yeah, Old Salty 4-6. And it's one that a lot of people don't have. A number 3, a number 4, or a 4-6, okay? And what I'll do is I'll put the 4-6 on one side and then maybe a number 4 on the other. And something else I forgot to say, don't try to put too much line out. A planer's only going to get so deep, okay? Don't let this thing out 150 yards thinking it's going to troll the bottom. It's not going to happen, okay? I'll troll like a 45-degree angle on this side of the boat, and about a 30-degree angle on that side, and that's it, okay?
What's the biggest thing that changes if you were going to run in Bahamas from everything you said today?
Leave the ballyhoo at home and just bring lures. And honestly, if you're going to the Bahamas, brings up a good point. If anybody's going to the Bahamas, you fish the tide. Tide is more important in the Bahamas than anything else. You want to fish the outgoing tide to the slack. So that's the biggest tip I can tell you is fish the outgoing tide. If you're getting all upset because you're fishing and it's incoming tide, you just fish the same spot in about 2 hours and you're probably going to catch something. And Bahamas, it's 200 to 400 feet. So into 200, out to 400, into 200, out to 400, which is like 12 feet. It goes 200 feet to 400 feet. Something that makes a difference out of here too is when do the fish bite? I wish I knew all those answers, but I will tell you that even kingfish on the beach, they bite the best on the slack tides. Right as like the hour before slack and right at slack, for me, that's when I found that they bite the best. Yes, sir.
Your angle is a single screw inboard, but what about outboard?
What do you mean?
Do the same angles?
Same angle. Yeah, like I said, it's only going to get so deep, okay? And keep one thing in mind for wahoo, he can eat it if he can see it. If it's below the bubbles, he can see it. Okay, so I don't think there's a planer in the world that's going to get deeper than about 30, 35, maybe 40 feet, okay? So at an angle, it's going to have maybe 60, 75 feet of line off, and like I said, you're going to be about maybe 30, 40 feet deep. So.
When you're high speed, are you
I read in an article one time that unless you drive like a drunken sailor, you don't catch any wahoo, okay? Last couple I've caught have been in a turn, you know, but I think it's just one of those things. I mean, what they're talking about is driving in like a little bit of an S pattern, okay, where you go a little bit left, a little bit right. What that's doing is it's making some of your lures, depending on how you're fishing and how much whitewater you have, it's making them called the ghost effect, okay, making them invisible, and then it goes back to visible, making them invisible and going back to visible. Yeah, that's all right. So, I mean, do we do that? Yes and no, okay? Yes, Mr. Stephen Tyler Grant Jr. What do wahoo eat? It's a pretty good question. Anything it can catch. Ballyhoo, flying fish, bonita, skipjack, really anything you can catch out there. The weirdest thing I've ever found in a wahoo is a remora. Kid you not. I caught a 71-pound wahoo. This thing was fat. Caught it up by the R4 tower. We cut that thing open, and I swear to God, there was a remora this big. It had the midsection, the tail, and the head all in the fish, okay? And then another time, I cut a wahoo open and found 3 beeliners in it, hence when I started making a beeliner color, okay? I had a question over here.
Steve, quick tips on how you handle like turning the boat with all those lures out and tight. See if the water temp immediately makes it tight.
Well, the word tight. You can do that tight turn ballyhoo fishing. I mean, you don't want to turn too tight. When you have everything spaced, and something I forgot to cover, every rod has a different ounce lead on it, okay? Now, my long line on my boat's going to be 350 feet back, and it's going to be one of my Molokai jets with no trolling weight, okay? My second longest line is going to be a Drunken Who pink and white with a 24 ounce or a 16 ounce. And as I get closer to the boat, I'll increase the size of the weight. If everything is spaced properly, okay, a light weight will float over a heavy weight in a turn. So you can still make some pretty sharp turns, but you know, you do a 180 and you know, you're going to be visiting the tackle shop. So, but brings up a good point, and I do appreciate you saying that. My closest rod, I know they make up to like 100-ounce trolling leads. I mean, I know I used to make up to 96. The biggest one I'll use is a 64, and that's just on my prop wash, okay? So you can use the larger ones, but it's been my experience, those larger weights have the tendency to wobble a little bit, and they work, but they're actually made for dredge fishing, okay? So just keep that in mind. If I had to pick 5 days to fish, it'd be 7 days in front of the full moon to 2 days in front of the full moon. Structure is everything, okay? If you've got any type of bottom fishing numbers out there, past 120 feet, all the way out to the ledge, that's where your fish are, okay? And like I said, you want to get to where your bottom numbers and the watercolor, water temperature coincide together. That's going to be your area. So we play connect the dots every time we go fishing, okay? Now I'm going to play connect the Seymour. So, but you know, literally we go out there and we'll troll from one general set of numbers to the next set of numbers. And the more numbers you can cover in one day, the more chances you have of catching one. So, yes? I'll do that if I've already probably snatched one off of there, okay? Because this has actually happened to me a couple of times where we've been over the same spot and we caught one. We came over there, bang, we got another one. And then next thing you know, we passed over it 2 or 3 times. And then I rolled out to the east and then came in there and I slowed the boat down and we literally got a double header. I mean, so yeah, I do some goofy stuff like that. It also depends on what I mark on the fish finder. You can actually mark wahoo, okay? It's not easy, but usually when you do, they're about mid-column, okay? So if it's 150 feet, most of the time when I'm marking a wahoo, they're actually about 65 to 75 feet down. So sometimes I wonder how quickly they can get from 75 feet to 0 feet, but it doesn't take very long. So.
You fish any of those marauders, and if so, which one?
No, not saying that they don't work for you, okay? But my experience, the reason why you don't see any of those here, it's not because, not because I'm trying to sell you those, which I'm not trying to sell you, my lords, today. The braid marauders, their hooks are loose as can be, okay? So imagine 2 hooks down there. Okay? Because anybody here that's actually fished with them probably knows what I'm about to say. Trying to figure out which rod it was, okay? It was probably the braid marauder. It probably got hit and you didn't get a hookup, okay? It's a 20% hookup ratio if I was going to try to do statistics on it, okay? That's not good enough for me. High-speed rigs with a double hook rig is about an 85 to 90% hookup ratio, okay? That's not a catch ratio. That's a hookup ratio. So, but that's the main reason why I don't use them. They do work. I know some guys that swear by them. I have not had good success with them, okay? There actually is one lure. It's actually made in Australia. It's called a pelagic, okay? It's similar to a braid marauder, but it has this goofy long, it's hideous looking, by the way. It's got this goofy long looking nose, and it's like $140. I mean, it's ridiculously expensive, but we got one years ago, and that thing got hit like I've never seen, but it was 20% hookup ratio. So I just haven't been a fan of using those. I do know the Rapala X-Wraps and stuff like that. I mean, all those little lures, they do work, okay? They just don't work well for me. So.
And the other question I have for you is, do you trim your skirts to the tip of the hook or halfway down?
Nope. I want the skirt to tickle the tip of the hook. Every one of these should be about the same, okay? That one's about 1 bead off. But all these, I try to make it to where the rear hook is exposed. A couple reasons for that. First, when I first started high speeding years ago, I didn't know any better. I'm just throwing rigs in a lure and hiding it like we used to do for marlin. And we missed a couple fish, and I brought it in, and I swear to God, there was probably 6 strands of skirts that were stuck on this rear hook, and it looked like Roland Martin weedless Texas rig. Okay, so ever since, and literally that day, I cut them with a pair of scissors, and I have not changed it since. And then since I found other people that do this, they do the same thing. So, and I also know some guys that they do a single hook instead of a double hook. It's really kind of 6 one, half dozen the other. I mean, I'm going to put 2 in every one of mine, so you can put 1 in yours. But they do hit the head. Years ago, I used to think that we're going so fast when we're high-speed fishing that they're only hitting the tail. That is a mistake, okay? And those of you guys that have caught a couple good ones, a 60-pound fish at 16 knots will inhale this whole lure, okay? And all you'll see coming up to the boat is a little piece of fluoro praying he doesn't bite through it. So, because it will happen if you do the little fluoro trick. I'm just saying, it does happen. So, I will tell you too, the fluoro I use is 330-pound test. Why? Because it fits in a 400-pound crimp. So there's really no, secret to a little fluoro. But I would tell you to use 330, or 400-pound test, something that's got a little bit of bite to it.
You talked about using fluoro, which terrifies me with like $600 of tackle hanging off the back of my boat.
This one, I'll pass this around too. This one caught another one actually this one caught a 60-pounder.
But does the fluoro solve some problem with my 70 whatever strand wire? What problem does the fluoro solve that the wire represents?
My head, okay? Because we've all had good days, we've all had bad days, okay? Last thing I want to do is fight my own head. If I was like, man, how many you got in your boat? You got 6? Mom, you guys got 6, man. I don't know how many, okay? So it's just a tackle, it's just one of those things. It's kind of like when we used to kingfish. We have a couple rods that got yards of fluorocarbon on it. Why? Because he has it. I mean, it's kind of one of those things. But for me, I like having at least one lure that's not rigged with cable. I like having at least one out there that's not rigged with cable. So it doesn't have to be 2, doesn't have to be 3, usually at least 1, maybe 2. Mamoy fluorocarbon. Yeah. Any other questions? Wire, single strand wire, number 9 or number 10, okay? You don't have to go up to number 12. That is some serious stuff, and you need 2 pairs of pliers and a screwdriver to turn it. So number 9, number 10 will do everything you need. If you catch a fish on wire, reason why I have, I'll rig 24 and have them all in a cooler. Just throw that rig away, cut the hooks off, get another one. Don't try to reuse it, okay? It's a 1-to-1 ratio. You catch one on wire, great. Throw it away. So get another one. Cable, you can catch multiple fish on cable. Same with fluorocarbon sometimes, okay? But, once you get it in, I always inspect everything before I put it back out. That's why, like I was telling you guys, this one didn't go back out. This one got hit twice, okay? So just check it before you put it back out, okay? All my hook sets are in line. Thank you for saying something. A couple reasons for that. I personally have noticed a better hookup ratio. 2 hooks right behind each other drags less in the water, so it's going to put less pressure on the reel, and it grabs less weeds. So 3 reasons why I like to use all my hooks in line. Something else I do with I make everything myself. All my hook sets, the width of my hand is about the size of a 40-pound wahoo's mouth, okay? So my hand barely fits in between these 2 hooks. That's it. That's it. That actually is IGFA approved. The problem with IGFA, they can't be too close, okay? So with this one, like I said, I do it with about my hand width apart, okay?
Do you prefer fluoro or I see some rig with fluoro.
All these rigged with fluoro that's my long position, okay? So tight to the boat, I'm using cable. I don't want to lose them, I feel better when I catch a fish on cable too, don't get me wrong. But it's kind of like sticking $5 bills on the reels when you get out there. You got to take a chance or you're not going to catch anything, right? Right? What's that?
Except they're $100 bills.
Well, if you're a baller like this guy, you do $100 bills. Me, they're like, $1 bills, and I had a $2 bill. It was lucky, and we finally caught a fish on that daggone thing. So, any other questions real quick, or I'm going to mark a rod? Yes, sir.
How do you match the lure with the weight? There's bigger lures and you got more meat out. They got to be parallel, right?
As far as matching a lure to the weight, really the weight has its own position. The lure that goes behind the weight doesn't really matter, okay? Like I said, with the heavier weight and a lighter weight, when you make a turn, a lighter one floats over one, and like all my lures weigh just under a pound, okay? So when you're trying to make which one goes to what, there's really no system to it, I guess I would say. Apologize. I just have dark side, light side, and every lure can go out. And like I said, the weights stay in the same position for me. The lures switch around though. So no lure has a specific, spot that it has to be at. I don't know if that answered or,
I just didn't know if there's a variance of weight.
that people didn't know how to mark their rods. And this is something I used to do a lot over at C&H. You'd come by, and if you bought a brand new set of rods, I'd mark them for free. If not, it was like $20. So I need a knife too. Any other questions while I'm running around trying to gather all my crap together?
Since you're a braided guy, pulling meat, have you ever tried the stable clip?
I'm sorry?
Stable clip. It's a braided clip that attaches the lines. So the line's not pinched, it actually moves and makes it.
No, I haven't seen it. Interesting. All right. I'll have to look at that. What's that? Okay. You got another question there, little guy?
What are you going to do with that?
I'm going to cut this off, and I'm going to show people how to floss your teeth. You ready for that?
No.
No?
He doesn't have the teeth to floss.
He's toofus. All right. You've been so kind tonight. Can I ask you to help me for just another second? Sure. I just need you to keep a little pressure on this, okay? All right. It's just easier to do this with pressure on it, okay? Now, as far as marking your rods goes, guys, if you buy one of those Rapala line counters, it kind of works, okay? But don't go out there and try to mark your rods while you're going 16 knots, okay? If you're going to use the little line counter, take a pre-fish day. Don't go out there on game day because you're going to get all upset at yourself, okay? Take a pre-fish day, figure out what you want your spread to be, and then you can mark it, okay? I used to have a counter over at C&H that was a 6-foot wheel. Now I have all kinds of counters and coilers and stuff, so, I mean, but what you want to do, get a piece of floss, okay? This is tacky wax. They make 70-pound tacky wax, okay? Now I'm going to show you how to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because I'm going to mark this, and I'm also going to prep this for a tagline return, okay? Because when I get to my mark on my taglines, all I do is grab my rubber band, tagline clip, send it out, done, okay? So all you do, take your floss and just do a little uni knot on one side, done. And I'm not going to do this as long as I normally would, because the problem with some of the other people that are marking them right now is they're not making them long enough or tight enough, and they're actually slipping after you use it the first time, okay? So what we're doing, I'm literally going to do a ton of half hitches. Going to half hitch. And you know what they used to say? If you can't tie a knot, tie a lot. That'll work. Yeah. You know, 47 half hitches will hold the world together. I'm just saying, man. I don't care. You can tie your bib schlimity twist. I got me 347 half hitches around that swivel. That son of a bitch ain't going nowhere. Hell yeah.
Monkey fist.
All right, so you do that, and I usually do, before I make my loop, I do about 2.5, almost 3 inches, okay? And then we're going to make a little loop. Literally just tie a little knot, a little square knot on this side. Then you want to tie a bunch of half hitches in between the loop to make sure that the loop stays open. Otherwise, the first time you use it, it goes out, it gets bunched up, and you'll never be able to open it up again. If you're doing this on monofilament, be careful how tight you pull this, okay? Because you can actually cut right through the mono with this 70-pound floss. This stuff's pretty awesome. This is the same stuff we use to make the dropper loop on our daytime swordfish rigs, okay? Except we don't use color because they charge more expensive for the color stuff, so whatever. And they do sell this in blue, red, and green. I've noticed green is the darkest that I've found, so it's usually the most visible, so it's what I prefer to use. It's called tacky wax. Yep. So we'll do that. We'll pull this down. All right. And then just finish it off again with just a quick little uni knot. 1, 2. So it's very simple. It just takes a few minutes to do. And of course I didn't tie that down right, but whatever. You know what? It's good enough for tonight. I'm not going to fish with this, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know. All right, thank you, sir. So what's nice about this is now I've got this mark on my rod, okay? It goes right through the guides, no problem. And once I get to that, you see there's a little loop on there, okay? Like I said, I'll just take my rubber band, put a rubber band through here, snap it to my tagline return, and then that's out in the outrigger and it's ready to rock, okay? Any other questions? While I'm up here scrambling and stumbling over my own feet.
What about wire line?
I have not had the success that other people have had with wire lines. I cannot stand them. I think it's bad for me. You know, it's kind of like black and red lures. I just, maybe I ought to try a black and red lure on a wire line. Might catch a stupid 100-pounder, you know? A lot of people have success with wire lines. Personally, I just never really did it. And we're going back to because when I first started doing this, we did everything by IGFA rules. You had to fight your own fish. Wire lines were not accepted by IGFA. Okay? So that's when I switched over to braid years ago. Okay? So instead of fishing wire, I fish braid because braid is thinner diameter than wire, and I still think it's going to get deeper, okay? Because wire line is not really that effective as far as getting deep when you're going so fast, because fluid friction comes into play and it's going to pull everything up no matter what. Now, slower speeds like ballyhoo fishing and stuff like that, absolutely it's going to play a factor. And with the, the longer, I think for every 100 feet you have out, it can be 10 feet deep at a certain speed. I mean, I forgot what the ratio is, but you're gonna benefit more from a wire line at ballyhoo speed. Now, somebody else was telling me that they use the wire line because of the harmonics or something that it makes in the water, which I can kind of almost understand that though. Hey, no, I'm good with that, okay? That's why Cannon Downrigger sells their positive ion control electric downrigger, okay? Because it puts positive juju in the water. So, I don't know. That's what they tell me. So, always check your line. The only thing that connects you to the fish is the line. Remember that, okay? The only thing that connects you to your wahoo is the line. Don't use old crappy line. So, oh man, can I still use this? Sure, go ahead. Put 3 of those lures on that line. Have fun, okay? So, monofilament lasts on a reel 6 months to 18 months, depending on how you take care of it, okay? Yes, you can get a couple years out of it, but I don't want to fish with a couple-year-old monofilament, okay? Braid, you're going to get minimum 3 up to 8 years out of some of the braid, okay? I don't want to tell you 8 on a lot of it, but you'll notice the braid lasts a long time as long as you take care of it, okay? Now, once or twice a year, I know some people don't have all this accessibility, but I like to take all the braid off my reels, dry the braid out, re-wax the spool, and then put it back on. Because something too, braid and Dacron and some of those other those Spectra lines, they do hold moisture, so they will corrode the spools of your reel. You don't want to get a $900 reel and get it all corroded up. So just something else to think of, okay? But y'all, I really do appreciate y'all listening to me make fun of myself up here tonight.
I hope you guys enjoyed this seminar as much as I did. I always love hearing how people catch fish, the different ways, their boat set up, tackle, all that stuff just coming into one, strategy to help us catch more fish. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Also, Steve has his own line of wahoo lures. They just came out. I got some myself. I'm excited to try them. So if you want to try some, just check them out. Thanks for watching the video. If you got any questions or comments, just leave them in the description below. Maybe you got some of your own tips and stuff. I'd love to hear them and just maybe learn more from the comments. So thanks for watching, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.